So one of the big things that, like, three big questions that have kind of come up consistently for me this week with people, the last 2 weeks really. One, and this is something we see a lot, and we mentioned it kind of towards the end of the talk last time, is stress.
Yep.
When people don't, they're like, oh, they don't really take into consideration anything outside of the gym, or even just um, life stress, and like they don't realize that all that stuff goes into that cup and there's that finite point, but one of the big things that even I forget sometimes myself is like, all right, I've got a heavy like deadlift session or whatever. And then I'm before or after at some point, do a 3 or 4 hours ski tour or a bike ride.
Right.
But I'm like, oh, that doesn't count. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't really think about is that piece of it.
Yeah. So I think there's two parts to that. The first thing is like, so stress. So what is stress? Like I like to use the analogy of if I took an I-beam in a building, right? Like at some point that beam will break. You could put enough load on there that beam will break. And your body is no different, right? And so you have to look at everything. It's not just what you do in the gym. It's not just what you do after, but your life stress, bills, your job, your relationships, your whoever you got to take care of. All those things add to that pot, right? And whether it's the glass running over the top or the beam breaking, at some point when that happens, then you get into a place where you're forced to manage it. And so all these things have a effect. And I think you got to look at your life stress and adjust your training or whatever it is you're doing appropriately, because nothing is going to get you hurt faster than walking into a heavy deadlift session already depleted and run down, right? Like your body just can't take that. And so that transitions right into the next part of it is if you look at, central nervous system cost of lifting. So CNS cost, anything moving weight is going to cost more than other stuff, right? Like it doesn't matter. And that the closer you get to 1 rep max lifts, the more stress you are. That's why if you look at those old Russian charts, if you're above 90%, you're doing, 5 or 6 singles, maybe 7, and you're done. Like you're blown up.
And you have like 3 to 5 minutes or more in between them.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing people think like, oh, I only trained for 10 minutes. It's like, yeah, but that 10 minutes you are at threshold, and people will not feel that stress. For me, like I know on a heavy strength day, I'm 48 hours out before my muscles start to really ache, and that's also a really good indicator for me. Like if I'm sore 24 hours later, it's like, okay, so did I do something different, or is it stress, or am I hurt, or did I really push that hard? Now let me quantify that. If you're just new to strength training, you're going to be sore all the time for a bit until there's some adaptation, right? But once you get into a routine and you understand like, oh yeah, I know like tomorrow's leg day and I'm going to do, a bunch of back squats, and that means on Sunday my legs are going to be trashed, they're going to be sore. If I wake up Saturday morning with sore legs, I got to ask myself, was my positioning bad? What was going on, or what other life stress did I bring into the gym that maybe, like it starts with sleep, right? Like there's no better way to relieve and manage stress and let your body recover than sleep. So if your sleep sucks.
I freak people out when I tell these guys coming in, I'm like, what would you do if I told you for every hour of training, you had to have 8 hours of sleep to truly recover and reap the benefits of it? And they're like,
yeah, it's not a one-to-one relationship, like I don't train for an hour and recover for an hour, it's, and everything's different. And if you look at that whole stress continuum, way over here, any weight work is going to crush your CNS the most, at the far end is cardiovascular aerobic work. And one of the things I tell people is like, that's not taking into the account the impact of running or whatever. That's just the CNS strain on your body for your heart rate and your respiration speed up. In the middle of body weight work, push-ups, pull-ups, air squats, all that stuff, And so if you look at things like the more stress your body's under, the more you're going to be able to still perform at the cardiovascular end, and you're not going to do well, and you're probably going to get hurt at the other end. And so that's, like this whole big, everything you do from the moment you wake up, like my dog squeaking the squeak toy behind me, does that add stress to my life? A little bit, I don't know if you can hear it through the mic, but it's also keeping him from, jumping in my lap right now. But, it's okay. What bills are coming in the mail today? Sitting down at a computer, like I gotta do all these things. Got to take the kid to the doctor. Got to take the dog to the vet. Like, got this deadline at work. Got this deadline at school. Like those are all stresses that take away, because they all, whether it's psychological or physical, they all release cortisol, and cortisol is what starts to make your body break down. Cortisol is also what's required in order to make muscles grow and do all these other things, but you've got to keep cortisol levels at a manageable, in a manageable place. And one of the ways you do that is manage the total accumulation of stress.
Do you use like HRV, or like, do you have anything that helps measure recovery? Like I've done everything, like from Whoop to HRV stuff. I'm a huge Joel Jameson. Obviously, you got the Whoop on, yeah. So that's kind of one that I've really liked. But is one of the things that I found the most interesting. I honestly, I can't remember who pointed this out to me. I think it may have been Cal Dietz, but grip test, and having people use just a grip reader, and that was one of the most accurate readings of how recovered they were. So over like the first 2 weeks that I would train someone, every other day we'd have them do a grip and find out kind of where that peak was for them. And that was obviously when we work with athletes, like when Jim Jones, when you were there, and you get to know people, and they walk in and we're like, that's part of your job as a coach. When someone's off. And but
I think, can I add something to that? I think an important thing is, like, when people walk in the gym and are warming up, what's the first question I ask? How you feeling today? Like, what's going on in your life? Because I want to understand. Because you're right, you can see when someone's not giving the effort you're used to. But I also just want to know, like, I think that's that thing that makes you a coach is, like, you're invested in people and you want to understand, what it is going on. And okay, you tweaked your back, like getting the kids out of the car. We're not going to do heavy deadlifts today. We're gonna do some structural work and some other stuff. So I think that's an important thing is, because they're gonna be shy. They don't want to tell you. Everyone wants to perform. Everyone wants to do their thing, right? But no one, at least for me, I haven't trained anyone who had a $5 million check waiting for them outside the gym based on their gym performance. And so it's like, okay, like it's okay. We can tone it down today. Like, you're not going to become unfit or lose your progress because you took care of yourself for a day, And I've actually had some people like, look, like, why don't you just go get on the bike rig and spin for 60 minutes?
Yeah. And because that's one, like, actually training to recover is a huge piece of it. It's like, I always like to talk about good and bad days versus like great days. Like, a great day, and we talked about this a little bit last time, is really hard to recover from. Whether it's a great day in the gym and you hit a PR or whatever, or a great day out in the mountains where you shredded power all day, like, that's going to tax your body. Like, ultimately, really, optimally, our bodies can only handle like 1, maybe 2 great days a week. And, or what like Joel Jameson calls those development days. And it's like, you look at like sprinters and things like that, like, they don't have more than 1 to 2 development days spread out 3 to 4 days apart over a period of a week.
Yeah. And I think that there's the other thing is, like, you can't compare yourself to a professional athlete, right? Because because they don't have the same life you have. Everything they do, like Usain Bolt, a couple years ago, everyone was blown away when he said he'd never run a mile for time. And it's like, well, why the hell would he? The guy literally runs 25 meters, because he's so fast out of the gate. Like I watched an interview with him talking about he knew whether or not he won or lost a race at 20 meters. And if you watch his races, 3/4 of the time, he's pulling up while everyone else is trying to catch up to him, and he's dancing across the finish line. But his training was probably really specific in, well, I know it was in specific blocks of stuff, and then everything else was recovery. Everything else was recovery.
Their job is to recover.
And I think that's the important thing is like if you want to perform, like you don't increase your performance in the gym. You increase your performance in what you do outside the gym by taking care of yourself. Like yeah, you got to put the hard work in the gym, but it's all wasted if and more isn't better. Like more is just more, and that's back to the cup overflowing, the beam breaking. We used to call it garbage intensity, and garbage volume. It's like garbage in, garbage out. Like this idea of like brick wall outside my house over there. If I run and smash my head into it once, great, but I don't need to do it 100 more times. Like it's not doing me any good. It's just breaking me down more and more and more every time. And so I think that's an important thing, like especially in strength work, because strength workouts at a high level can be very short. Like yeah, there's a bunch of warm up and there's probably some supplemental accessory work, but the actual workout, the strength part of it could you might be doing 3 sets of 3 or 4 sets of 3 or something that it doesn't take that long. I think the other part of that people don't realize that you mentioned a second ago is the appropriate adequate rest in between sets. It's not about, oh, I think I can do this. Like if you're at that top end of the strength world or the power world, you want to be as close to 100% recovered for each set as possible, and that might be 4 or 5 minutes in between sets. A lot of sitting around the gym looking at your watch. And I think that, that's a challenge with regular folks that have jobs and are on schedules that they don't have 2.5 hours to kill in the gym to get their appropriate rest in and everything else. But that all comes back to that recovery piece, like being ready for the next lift as close as you can, because there's a cumulative effect, like if you're doing a 6x1 at 90%, that last single probably should almost kill you or fail, right? Like if you're truly at your 90%, and that's one of the ways I always know, like, yeah, that's not 90%. Like you actually got more than that because that moved way too fast, way too easy, but you want that 4 or 5 minutes in between, and you're going to be devastated after.
Yeah, it's something that I've learned to do, and because obviously, like most of us, we want to move, we want to go, and sitting around, especially in the gym, you feel like, well, I'm not doing anything because we get stuck on the like endorphin response and that feeling of we like to feel tired to feel effective, but it's kind of tricking the system by putting in like fillers and mobility work and corrective stuff in between those lifts and little activators. So that like all of a sudden you have to do it and they don't even realize that they sat around for 2 minutes recovering. But we all love the WOD.
That's why people love hero WODs, right? Because they crush you and you get that endorphin rush, that oxytocin rush, and you're like, yeah, and you feel like you did so much, and yeah, you did, but it's just a bunch of work capacity stuff, right? Like it's just a bunch of stuff to build the engine underneath, and I think that's part of why CrossFit exploded like it did, because people really like that kind of stuff, and it keeps them entertained, and it keeps that dopamine feed, it's the rat hitting the cocaine bottle in the cage, like keep it coming.
Yeah, and honestly, that kind of leads into like one of the other biggest things that I get questions about. And for me, I'm a strong believer that whatever your body composition goals are, strength work and like weights is the kind of the main meat and potatoes of that, and the most effective, whether it's to get lean and lose weight or to build muscle. And it's in the training effect change. Your training volume and how you lift and stuff changes per that. But like, I'm a huge believer that strength training is the main priority for like body composition goals. But again, it's one we have to mentally buy into it. And if people aren't as laying on the floor exhausted, they don't think that they've done much to improve body composition goal.
Right. Well, there's a couple of things there. Like let's just take weight loss, right? Like someone wants to lose X percentage of body fat, right? So the first thing is muscle burns calories. Fat doesn't, right? So part of it is just getting your muscles strong so they're burning more calories, right? So your body, like just sitting here, a strong person is burning more calories than a less fit person, because you gotta feed muscles, right? Your muscles need oxygen and all that stuff. And so yeah, like I can't put you on a rower if you're not strong enough to row with power, right? And you're gonna get injured and all those things. So yeah, strength training is like there's two things when if I took a new client off the street, you know, and let's just say that they've been sitting in their office for however many years, you know, they were the football star in high school and they haven't done anything since, you know, the first 30, 60, 90, 120 days, there's no set limit on it. It's just gonna be, you know, injury proofing and imbalance correction. Both of those come in the form of strength work, right? And it's going to be light weights and proper form and all that stuff. And it's also going to be, I'm going to teach them the proper way to do the things, but we're going to start working them up to being able to hit certain, you know, I think that like some of, you know, various gyms have various standards out there. Like you got to hit X, Y, or Z to be part of the club, whatever. But I think that there's some things like you should be able to deadlift your body weight repeatedly. You know, like the average Joe sitting in an office should be fit enough to repeatedly deadlift their body weight. You know, start going beyond your body weight. Now you're becoming an athlete, whether that's a weekend warrior or someone doing more. You know, and you know, for you know, like for me in my world, I look at you know, I'm roughly 185 pounds right now. I want to be able to do like 50 reps unbroken at 225. More than I want to do a double or 2.5 times body weight deadlift, because I'm more of an endurance athlete and I do things all day long. Picking up one thing really heavy one time doesn't serve me a lot of function in the rest of the world. But there's other things like people should be able to pick up at least half their body weight over their head. You know, like that's just everyday walking around functional strength. And there's other bits and pieces you could pick apart there, but yeah, I can't, whatever your goals are, I can't get you there if you don't have a base level of strength, you know, and a base level of endurance, you know, because those are the two things when you get tired or you start to break down, those are the two things that are going to carry you through. You know, like I was talking to someone the other day that has this objective to run up this mountain in 5 hours, and they're asking me if they should be doing more volume or intensity work right now. I was like, well, you should do both, but volume, that's what's going to carry you when you hit the wall. You know, having that, you know, you don't train for a 5-hour window, you train for a 7 or 8 hour window, you know, because you got to get up and get down. But having that extra capacity, that's what's going to carry you through. You know, the intensity is going to give you the burst strength and everything else. And so there's this fine balance. But yeah, strength is so important for the underlying stuff. And I guess the other one I didn't mention is core, right? Like if you can't manage your limbs because your core is weak, then you're really inefficient human being and you're wasting a bunch of energy trying to do all this other stuff, you know? So
can you reiterate what you said last week? So like last week we talked about, we say core and people just think abs.
right.
And that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's, to me, it's everything from my collarbones to my hips.
Yeah.
You know, it's all the intercostals. It's all the stuff that holds you together. You know, like I look at, like you look at Alex Honnold. that dude probably has better core strength and body control than any human being on earth, other than maybe some of the, some of those crazy gymnasts, the Cirque du Soleil people. But the reason he is able to move with such authority and such control is because his core is like, he's not actively having to think about keeping things tight. He is able to move systematically in highly technical terrain, because he knows every time he moves a limb, it's going exactly where he wants it. It keeps his balance better, his weight distribution's better, his center of gravity's better, all because his core. And you look at the guy, like he's not in some fancy gym. He's doing pull-ups and leg lifts on the side of his van in the parking lot in Yosemite. Like.
Well, and this is a, like you said, one of the biggest things there is giving people control. And how many times do we have a new person come in a gym and you're like, oh, you arm up here, but you want to engage your scapula and have movement through the back, and they're like, no idea how to feel that. Or to get someone to use their glute, no idea how to do that.
Yeah. Or retract their subscaps.
Yeah.
Like get someone to, like, you tell someone to do a chest high pull up.
Shoulders back, and they're like,
yeah.
Without bending your arms. What? How?
Yeah. You tell someone to do a chest high pull up, and the reason they can't is because we had no subscapular strength. Everyone thinks lats. It's like, well, okay, so if I pull down, my lat doesn't engage till here, and now my lat's done. To get that last few, I gotta have subscap strength to pull me up. And that's part of why we were always sticklers about not doing kipping push-ups, is build that strength. Because everyone wants to bench press, right? Well, actually, subscaps will help you have a better bench press too, if you really engage the movement properly.
And that's the thing, is like I was telling someone this the other day, like, think about pressing or whatever. And I don't program a ton of pressing. There's a piece for it right now, especially where a lot of people are stuck doing body weight stuff, sure, but it's, I talk about the glute and the back actually pulling down into a push-up and creating that activation to them. And they're like, well, what is my back? And the people are just blown away how much the back is involved in everything. And
yeah, well, and two, you got people doing push-ups with these really wide stances because they think it's easier. What they're really doing is putting a tremendous amount of stress on their shoulders. It's like, well, when you learn to bring your elbows in, or at least to 45, then you automatically force all that stuff in your back to be part of this. And like my arms are these skinny little long things. I want all the support that I can get from my lats and my back to, it'll help me with all that stuff. And it's
not an intervention when it's just body weight goals and fat loss goals or whatever. You're using more muscle. You are burning more. You are engaging more. You are creating more opportunity for your body to be leaner and toned.
Yeah, and I think that people don't realize that women all the time, and some women build muscle mass faster than others. There's no question about it, or they get bigger than others. But most of the women that I've seen train, I've never ever seen a girl upset when the top of her abs, her six pack starts to show right for the first time. It's like, she's like, oh wow, like I didn't really expect that to happen. And it's like, it's like, yeah, we haven't really done anything, and that's why metcons are so effective too, because you get the heart rate up and you start doing strength movements, and the calorie burning goes through the roof, and but I can't do that with someone doesn't have the underlying requisite strength levels to start doing those types of movements.
That foundational ability to control, like you said, control their body.
And that's why I love kettlebells. Like you have to, okay, you don't have to. There's lots of ugly kettlebell work out there, but in order to avoid having your arms beat to shit and potentially seriously injure yourself, you have to learn to move kettlebell as well. And to move kettlebell as well, you have to have base levels of strength. And there's also coordination and movement. Like how many people do you teach a clean to, and their forearms are just beat to death because they grab it and they're afraid of that thing, and it comes up and bangs onto their arm. Like that's a coordination and a strength thing. and a speed thing, you know, like moving that whole thing appropriately and understanding, you know. But if I don't have all this stuff working properly, it's really hard to keep that kettlebell close to my body because I want to use the momentum and throw it up way out here far away. It's like, no, you know, that kettlebell should be close. And it's the same thing. It's like if your arm's out here, this thing is in danger of getting hurt, you know. Big giant lever, you know. I want everything in here tight, and that way lats and pecs and your back is all holding your shoulder together. You know, it's why does jiu-jitsu and wrestlers have so many so many arm bars and everything else that manipulate your shoulder? Because it's such a vulnerable joint, you know. It's so easy to move that thing in so many different directions that cause massive discomfort, you know.
Yeah, it's like you tell someone, all right, hold the weight out here, hold the weight here.
Yeah.
Like, hold this as long as you can. No one's gonna go, okay.
Yeah.
I know that. And it's just but it's a funny thing. Again, we all get in we chase the feeling and chase the drug of the workout, and we're using that. And, you know, and I can't even tell you the amount of times I've had someone be like, look, I don't care if I'm doing it right. I just want to be tired. And I'm just like, that's great. Except for me, on my end, you're going to get hurt, and then you're not going to be able to get tired.
Well, you know, for me, it's great. Then we're going to do a, you know, 30-minute AMRAP, of 20 burpees or something like, you know, or death by burpees. Like you want to get tired fast and with low risk, you know, death by burpees. Set a timer for 1 minute intervals. Minute 1, you do 1. Minute 2, you do 2. Minute 3, you do 3. See how many rounds you get, you know.
That's what I do.
I guarantee you'll be tired. I promise.
Yeah. I do. When I know that I have a client, like, and I have people that they're just like, man, and they're like, they get annoyed at just the technique, and they don't want it. They just want to, again, kind of feel tired. And that's why I use sleds a ton. I mean, because you can load it heavy, you can load it light and go long. Like, you can crush people with it. And there's little risk for injury there. And if they're not, and that's kind of where I learned with a lot of people that, you know, one, I don't like, and I like the saying of like earning the barbell, because I think there's a very important piece of it. But, you know, I don't want people to think like, oh, like you haven't earned this, and then like in a dick kind of way. But it's like, it's not necessary all the time. And I do believe that people need to progress intelligently and correctly. And, but I also understand, like, I want people to, in some shape or fashion, be lifting something heavy as quickly as I can, which is also why I do a lot of like floor-based, like glute bridges and things like that, because we're deadlifting, but there's less room for error on this side. We can start lifting heavy.
The other two things I really like with the sled, you know, like give me a 24-kilo kettlebell on a sled, and I can make your legs jello, right? Like, it doesn't require a bunch of fancy equipment, but by mixing up high and low pushes and pulls on a sled and various drags and everything else, you force people to activate their hamstrings and glutes because they can't move it without them, you know. The other thing is because of the focus on the eccentric movement or the concentric movement, sorry, there's way less DOMs associated with sled work, right? Like people walk out of the gym, like everyone fears the prowler, right? Like, and they walk out of the gym feeling crushed, except for they're not as messed up the next day as if we had done a back squat workout, and we still get the same benefit. And for any, you know, any sort of outdoor athlete, whether you're a mountain biker, skier, snowboarder, climber, runner, whatever it is, and any sort of tactical athlete, any military person, the sled work has a tremendous transferability to what you're actually doing out there. You know, like the world
from the next day swinging as much.
Yeah, and the world very rarely has convenient handles that are shaped like a barbell, right? Like I can't.
The woods the other day, I was walking and there was a bar. It was perfect. It was great.
I can't get my straps out and hook grip 90% of the things that I pick up in the world, right? And so like developing this grip strength is really important, right? Or even this grip strength, right? Because that's how the world presents itself to me. It's very rarely this perfect thing in a controlled environment where I get to just go do it, and I think that that's really important, is to think about, I don't care what you do out there in the world, but think about, like don't be afraid to ask your coach the why are we doing this? Because I think it makes you a better, once you understand why you're doing a particular movement, the underlying reasons behind it, you will, you might invest yourself more, but you start to understand the mechanics. But B, it's like, if the answer is just because, or there's no reason, then you got to ask yourself, like, is this the right coach, or do I have the right outcome? If someone comes to me and wants to lose weight and we're doing heavy strength work every single day, I'm not doing them any favors, right? Like and I think that goes down a whole other rabbit hole, right? The body comp thing is like 90% of that is done by fixing your diet and your habits outside the gym.
Abs are made in the kitchen.
What you do in the gym is a small amount, but you got to change all your habits, and whatever that body comp rule is, like, guess what? You want to lose weight? I don't care what diet you choose to follow, or what you got to burn more calories than you eat. That's science,
No way around it.
pick whatever diet or recipe or whatever you want to go to get there, but you got to go less calories in than you're using. If you want to get big, guess what? You got to eat more carbs than you can possibly fathom. Like, I've watched guys at the gym over the last 4 years that were on serious mass gains programs. I don't know how they eat that much food, and what's terrifying is, like, when you are that strong and that lean, like, your weight gains are minuscule. Like, it takes weeks for guys to get from, that's why I was so confused. Like when fighters talk about going up weight classes, like unless you're really killing yourself to lose weight to get down to a weight class, like, why would you want to go up? Because you're going against guys that are so much bigger than you. Weight mass gain is hard. And I'm a total ectomorph. Like me, like, mass gain just, like, doesn't happen. Like, the only mass gain I make is increasing the size of my beer gut, right? like my body has been this size since I was 20 years old, and walk around at 6 foot, 185 pounds, and I lean out and I get toned, but I just don't get that much bigger, and I watch other guys in the gym that can go from 185 to 200 like that, because they got the body type for it.
This is where the, like, body composition, anything like that, there's a huge mental piece to that. And, I think a lot of times, and this is whenever I used to train a lot of Olympic weightlifters, they'd be like, oh, like, I really like this person. I'm like, all right, well, if you're going to watch someone lift, make sure that your body, like, type is aligned with them, because you can't really tell on YouTube that, I'm 6'2" and I'm watching a 5'4" Chinese lifter. I'm like, man, I want to lift like that. Not going to happen.
Right.
So it's the same thing when you're looking, and this is actually what leads perfectly into the third topic. But
well, and let me add one thing to that. Like I'm 6 feet tall, but I got super long femurs and calves and short arms. Guess what? I'm not good at deadlifting. Like my deadlift start position is really, really awkward in order to keep my back braced. And yeah, like look at world champion deadlifters. They don't look like me. They're as big around as they are tall. And, like, look at Eddie Hall. The guy's arms go down to his knees.
That monkey.
Like he is, he did lots of things, but he's built to deadlift. Like, he has the physio, and so I think that's a great point. Like Eddie Hall is not going to run the way I run, because he's built totally different. So I think that's a really good point. Of like, well, this guy's doing that. It's like, well, look at that guy. Like, that guy's built. That guy's had different mechanics than you do. And so I think that that's a really good point for folks.
And that kind of leads into this other point of health versus fitness. We look at the magazine photo shoot and, like, man, that guy looks ripped, and this girl looks amazing. And, and it's just, okay, we always get into, a rabbit hole there of looking at someone else. That's what I want to look like. Because again, different body, like you and I will never look the same. I could be like, oh man, like Jake looks amazing in a Speedo and I want to look like that. But it'll never look like that. You know, so
yeah, I think there's two things. So what is fit? What's fit for you? What's fit for you is different than fit for me, right? And so one thing I think, and it's like, you know, fitness is to me the ability to do a task. So what's your task, right? And if looking good, if someone walks into me and says they want to look good or they want to look better, it's like, okay, great, but what does that actually mean to you? You know, like, give me something black and white we can work with. Does that mean lose 20 pounds? Does that mean you want visible six pack? Does that mean you want to lose 10% body fat? Does that mean you want to gain an inch on your biceps? Like, what does looking good mean to you? Because then you can take this and go, okay, well, you know, client X, like let's look at you. Let's look at your starting point. And, you know, if you're, you know, 125 pounds, excuse me, if you're a woman 125 pounds and you're already sitting at, you know, 15% body fat and you're telling me you want to lose 15 pounds, like, well, it's probably not healthy. Like, you could do it, but it's probably not healthy, right? Like this, like, I don't think people understand like how lean so many of these people that they look at in magazines are, you know, like why is that guy, like take a UFC fighter. Like, why does a 150-pound UFC fighter look like a giant in the octagon? Because the guy's got no body fat, right? And he's also facing off against another guy who's 5'6" or 5'7" and is super lean, right? Like it's so weird when you see a guy in the UFC that's got a little bit of belly fat because they look like, man, that guy looks really out of shape. That guy would kick the shit out of you.
yeah, right.
like those guys are strong and fast and coordinated and highly skilled fighters, and like Dan Cormier. that guy does not look like arguably one of the best fighters of all time, right? And but I don't want to get in a fight with that guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to get anywhere close to him. You know, he's, you know, 70, 80, 100 pounds bigger than me, but be like, that guy's lethal and he's strong and he's smart, but and he's got a gas tank. Like, he's not gassing out 5 rounds of a fight.
Fights, you know,
and so I think you got to define what fitness is versus health, you know, and what are you trying to really accomplish, you know? Okay, so take an endurance athlete. Yeah, they want to get as efficient as possible, and depending on what type of endurance they're doing, you know, like, okay, the Tour de France. Ever been around a Tour de France rider, like coming off the Tour de France? Like, those guys, again, they're, you know, what do they allow 2 pounds of body weight per inch of body height. So a 72-inch Tour de France cyclist can weigh 144 pounds. Yeah. So you got to, that's me minus 40 plus pounds, give or take. So you're going to cut one of my legs off.
Next year.
You know, they're all legs, right? They're all legs. Why? You know, like because their upper body doesn't need to be anything, and it's just a waste of efficiency. So is that what you want to look like? Is that what fitness means? Well, maybe if you want to be a professional cyclist, but most people, you know, if you took, you know, Lance Armstrong or Levi or any of those guys and stood them up with their shirts off in the height of their training season, like, that's not what most people think of as fit, and it's probably not healthy. You know, I mean. And so I think that's, you got to define what those things mean, because I want to look better naked. Okay, great. What does that mean? You know, because what I think, you know, you might want to look like, it might not be the same thing. And there's really different ways to get people there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, again, just that bigness. And I'm a strong believer that anything that anyone is doing elite, I don't personally put that in like healthy category, because you have to sacrifice so many things to be really great at something. So like France riders, whatever. Like no, it's not healthy. You know, like once these guys retire, like I have an NFL, one of my good friends is that had 13 years in the NFL, and this is his first year out. And what the biggest goal has basically been kind of like detuning all the things that made him a great defensive end. You know, he spent 13,
Yeah.
20 years in a 3-point stance, twisted up all weird. And he just wants to hike and snowboard now. And his body doesn't work like that.
Do you know who Alan Faneca was or is? He was a Pro Bowl guard for the Steelers and the Jets. Hall of Fame guy, retired 7 or 8 years ago, dropped 100 pounds, and now he runs sub 4-hour marathons. He's still like a 225-pound dude, but you look at pictures of him, like it doesn't even look like the same human, right?
Yeah.
And he's I've seen him in interviews. He's like the shape I needed to be in to be a pro level, an all pro guard in the NFL, not sustainable, and that's why I think, I don't care if you're in the NFL or if you're an Olympic sprinter. Yeah, you're right. Those elite athletes, they train in a really specific periodized program where, they come out of their off season, they ramp up really appropriately. So they're primed for competition season. Their competition season, they're probably not doing a lot of training because, it's just a bunch of structural stuff and everything else. And they get out of their competition season and then they have a deload or a cool down, and they probably take some time off, and then they cycle around. And yeah, it's not the model that your average Joe should be following. Whoever your idol is in whatever sport that you participate in, if they're doing that for money and that's their full-time job, unless you have a ton of disposable time and income, you're probably not going to be able to do what they do.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of the situation. And and some of those guys have a genetic ability to do things that some of us can't. But the reality is most of them work hard on a really specific training regimen that is, mapped out over a year or years, and so that they peak at the appropriate time. And then, I think that's why, like the NFL, why the first 4 weeks of the season not as exciting. And it's not because those guys don't play in the preseason, it's because they're not in playing shape till week 5. They can't beat themselves up like that and be ready for week 1. And that's just a reality. It's not the preseason or anything else. It's just they're not in playing shape till a month into the season.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think that's the biggest thing is just being aware of goals. And as coaches, our job really one is to guide that, but ask the appropriate questions. Because a lot of times I don't think people necessarily. I have the experience a lot where clients don't necessarily realize what they're asking for, and by asking a few very valuable questions, we're able to adjust a few things, and they're like, oh yeah. But like you said, as a coach, it is truly helping understand what that looks like for them. Because again, when someone says that and this is what we see in our head, that doesn't mean it's them. And and I always try to make sure that I'm the right fit for someone. And and there's always different approaches. Like if I have someone come in and they have a competitive goal, I very clearly explain that it's more about, all right, we're going to do testing, and it's not about what you want, but it's more focused on what you need. If for a competitive goal, there's a lot less of the I just want to I need to have fun, and that's a piece of it. But versus someone that comes in I just want to be fitter. I want to be able to get on my bike and go whenever that time arises, ski, pick my kids up, play. Okay, there's a lot more flexibility in that training approach.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the thing is asking the questions. And again, one of the most valuable questions for a client is why. Like you said. And if a coach can't tell you why, leave.
Yeah, and the other thing I think is I don't care if they're carrying a journal around the gym or they're using their phone and taking notes and taking pictures, but I want my groups, I want my people to be able to tell me what their numbers are. When I put stuff on the board, I want them invested in stuff. They're paying attention. They understand, and that takes a little time to train them, depending on what modality you're using or what tool you're using, training them what they need to be tracking and what they need to pay attention to. But I know, I had this group of 9 people, and I throw a particular, strict press workout on the board, and I say we're going to do it this way, everyone knows their numbers, right? And yeah, they're pulling their phones out, whatever, but everyone knows their numbers because they wrote them down the week before, and I have them, like, okay, like you did this lift at this weight, but how did it feel? Like what went right, what went wrong? Like, okay, let's and at the end of a workout, I'll tell folks, hey, next time we do this, I want you to go up 5 pounds or go down 5 pounds or change this, change that. And I think that that's really important because, it helps them, stay invested in what's going on. I think the other thing with people that are competitive or have really specific performance goals is there's a lot of repetition, like your weeks start looking the same, Monday, Wednesday, Friday are going to be the same week after week after week. And there's going to be, you're going to be increasing weight or increasing reps, whatever it is, but they're going to be the same thing, over and over and over. And that requires, again, you're getting out of the fun work, that fun foundation stuff. And you're getting into, people that are really committed to doing this thing. And, it's just part of how it works. It's as my friend Joe Riggio told me a bunch of years ago. He's like, look, man, he's like, since the first Greeks in Rome has picked up a rock and set it down and picked up a rock and set it down again, like nothing's changed in weight training. Like you pick up heavy shit, set it down, repeat it, and you get stronger. We've learned more about like how to apply that appropriately with loads and everything else, but he's like, there's nothing magic out there. You just gotta do the work. And if you have really specific goals, man, it gets really boring. Like you're gonna be doing the same thing over and over and over again. And that's just the way it is, Like, okay, you want to run 100 miles? Great, go run. Like there's nothing I can do in the gym that's more important than you getting the miles in. There are things I can do to supplement that and help you stay healthy, but your miles are the most important thing you're going to do. You want to climb a mountain, put a pack on your back and start hiking up and down mountains. How many guys have I dealt with over the years who email me, hey, I got a selection test coming, or I'm headed to selection. I got X, Y, and Z that I got to do. I actually have a kid that I've been working with that is going to go be a combat controller, and we had a bunch of conversations. And what did he suck at? Pull-ups and swimming. And I was like, guess what, man? You got to swim. You got to swim because the swim test is hard in that selection stuff, and from 0 pull-ups to 10 pull-ups in a few months just by focus and repetitive work. And so that's the kind of thing. And body composition, if people have a really clear, defined, attainable goal, that works. That kind of stuff can be more fun because you don't have to get real specific to a specific movement or lift. You can do lots of things. Most body comp, unless you're talking about mass gains, which is its own different world, right, comes down to burning calories and toning muscles. And there's lots of fun ways you can do that stuff.
I dig it.
Yeah. Hey, I want to circle back real quick since you asked, like the Whoop thing. Like I've had it almost a year. I like the sleep tracking and some of the other stuff. The things I haven't been able to get good answers from them about where they're coming up with max heart rate numbers. And because that really affects strain, right? And the way they measure it. And so that's an interesting thing. The other thing is for them, strain is almost exclusively measured off, percentage of max heart rate. So a heavy deadlift day can show up as very minimal strain on the Whoop. And like we just talked about, like that's not a really good reflection of how messed up your body actually is. Where that's going to show up is in your HRV the next day, right? And you're going to show up as less recovered. The other thing, as an endurance guy, and I didn't know this till recently, it taps out at 6 hours. It won't let you record an activity for longer than 6 hours.
Oh, so it automatically assumes it's wrong.
So like the last one I did, like my last 9-hour day, I hit stop. It got this thing that popped up said you can't like you
can't
can't
keep
record
that.
activity longer than 6 hours. And I was like, well, so it has a limited functionality there.
Yeah.
I do like the journal that they've just improved that quite a bit. Because then I don't have to write stuff down in other places, but it's interesting to me. Like there's been days where I feel like I'm ready to sprint up Mount Everest and it has my recovery in the red and I'm 9%. And there's been days where I feel like I can't do anything and I'm 99% recovered. And so I think that it's not perfect, but I do really like looking at how it tracks sleep. I think it tracks sleep better than any other device I've used. And I'm probably going to go back to my my Garmin for my heart rate for my workouts as my runs get longer and longer and leading up to my 50, just because I'm trying to train in certain zones and if it taps out at 6 hours and I'm on a 9-hour training run, it's not doing me any good.
Yeah.
So
I think maybe that's a good thing for us to talk about. We'll be talking about recovery stuff and dedicating a session to that so you guys can understand what that looks like and the understanding of like HRV and what we are talking about here and ways to recover, use the gym as recovery. So like for a lot of my mountain bike endurance athletes and stuff like that, like the gym is used more as a recovery aid than anything else during their heavy training. So maybe we can dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think, something that's completely overlooked by so many people, like we could break recovery down into, daily, weekly, monthly, annual, like phases. They're all important, but just go for a walk.
Yeah.
Go for a 30-minute walk or a 60-minute walk is a tremendous recovery tool for any, whether it's ultra endurance or ultra strength. Going for a walk and just getting your body moving and staying hydrated is a huge recovery tool that's overlooked.
One of my
so many people
HRV days ever was when I was training for Point to Point last year, mountain bike race, and we did the first kind of basically. We weren't doing it at race pace, but we rode the whole race on Saturday, pretty much 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we were stopping for lunch and whatever. But then the next day, I just sat on the couch and watched movies because I was just devastated and literally didn't move. Monday was like because I was talking to Joel Jameson and a few other guys about it, and they were like, "It's because you didn't move. Your body was so shocked, like because you never don't move." So that actually messed up your recovery because your body didn't know. Like if you had gone for a walk or like a tour or something, I would have been better off.
Yeah, and I think I could tell you how many hundreds of times we had a back squat day or something, and someone had to get out of the gym, rush home, get their kids or whatever, and they walk in the next day like a zombie, because they didn't take 10 or 20 minutes to just spin on the bike or go for a walk and move and just begin that recovery process. It's like a race car. If you ever been to a drag race, it's only a quarter mile. It takes 8 to 9 seconds, right, for these guys to run at a bajillion RPMs. They don't turn the car off as soon as they cross the finish line. That thing cools down for probably 10 times the amount of time that was out there on the racetrack, right? And your body's the same thing. Like going for that walk, spinning on the bike, whatever, some low impact, low threshold cardio activity begins the recovery process in your body. You got to do it.
Client leave the gym without 3 minutes of like 90-90 breathing, and like just down regulate. Because I'm like, look, for a fact, this is the only 3 minutes you're going to take today where you're just quiet and in your head, and think about it. But telling your body, hey, I'm done. And recover. And that's a big thing. And so many of us do. We start a workout, finish it, and run out. It's like you're not setting the body up. Your body still thinks it's going.
Yeah.
So we'll dive more into that next week, guys. And again, for those of you that are listening, I did get a few questions that we talked about today from some people, and so we'll just keep that going. And we'll update you guys more on programs that'll be available and that Jake's offering and some of the other stuff going on. And just keep surviving quarantine.
Awesome. Yeah. Hopefully Who knows? May 1st, it might be over.
First, hopefully, I heard there's rumors.
Yeah.
I saw something on TV the other day that gyms are going to be phase 1 reopening. So
I saw they let gyms reopen in Logan already.
yeah,
So,
we'll see. Hopefully.
yeah. Right on, man.
All
Well,
right,
be
brother.
well. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Talk to you. Bye.